Welcome, one and all, to a draft. Today we're doing a Duskmorn draft, and yes, I know, I recorded this a while ago, because it says premiere on the screen, but we don't care about that, because we're gonna go have some fun, and eventually my recordings will be coming out on such a delay, which is exciting. But for now, it is what it is. I've never done the stairs before, and I think that would be kind of fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick that. And the way that I'm doing these drafts right now is I do the draft and I do my voiceover later for a couple of reasons. One being that when I draft right now, I'm really boring to watch because I'm taking so much time thinking that I'm not actually going to be talking to you that much. Which, some people are into that content, but I figured like multiple minutes of me saying nothing wouldn't be the best. The alternative is I could talk more, but then I would probably make more mistakes in the game than I already do. So, we're not gonna do that yet, but maybe one day we can do like drafts live or something. Not saying that. I'm grabbing some more rooms here though, because the central elevator and the promising stairs, the way they work is one half of that room grabs a room, and then the other half of the room, the promising stairs, says if you have so many rooms unlocked, then you win at your upkeep. So we want 8 different rooms, which sounds like a lot, and they can't be duplicates. They have to have different names, which means I'm grabbing as many stairs as I can. Right now I only have one. So we have a singular win con technically, but we're also going to be grabbing as many rooms as we can, which is why I grabbed the dual land, because we're gonna most likely be all 5 colors, which, it can be a little hard to pull off in draft. We'll see. We'll see. So here I'm just grabbing some more blue cards since we're heavy in blue and blue does a lot to care about rooms. And then we're also grabbing dual lands if I don't like the blue cards and if I don't like uh, the other cards available or if I don't see any rooms. And that'll be helpful for, just color fixing. I do like the meat lockers. These are one of my more favored rooms. I think even though they're more of like a tempo play, because you're not getting rid of anything, you're just tapping it down. It gives you enough time in this format generally to do what you need to do. And we got our first red room. So technically, with these 4 cards, if they're all on the field and they're all unlocked, I do have 8 different rooms, including this room right there, the underwater tunnel. I have 10. And obviously, we want more than the bare minimum because asking to draw the exact 4 cards that you need and being able to play them is a little unrealistic. So as I find more rooms, I'll continue to grab them, and then maybe we can pick from our favorites if we have that luxury later. We're getting to the end of pack 1, so we're just kind of picking and choosing what's better than not better. I think it's really nice that there is a winter's intervention this late. Usually they're not this late, and I absolutely love Fear of Infinity. I think it's a really fun card when you have more than one of them. So I don't know, maybe we'll get lucky. This pack is interesting, right? There's no rooms, there's no dual lands. The rare is cool, but for what we're doing, it doesn't really help anything. And that's why I kind of ignored the rare, and I'm not even mousing over the uncommons. I'm just looking at other good cards that are in more of our favorite colors. So I take a second, unable to scream. The Coastly Keybear basically wasn't really even a choice compared to the other things in this pack. I think that if you have a creature that lets you unlock rooms for free in a room's deck, it's going to be really nice. And then we got lucky here with a second promising stairs. So instead of a singular card with a win con on it, oh, we could go for two of them. So doubling our odds of actually being able to pull this off, technically, if you want to think about it that way, really nice. Very, very nice. Alright, on our next pick, we got another interesting room here. I don't know how often I would unlock the more expensive side, but it is another room, and copying a creature we want means maybe I can get a copy of like one of the key bearers to unlock more rooms faster. We'll see. We'll see. So I already have a ticket booth and a meat locker. What I'm doing here, come on, past self, make a choice. Um, is I'm trying to figure out if I want to stay more blue or if I want to start like leaning into red a little heavier, and I just decided to stay more blue. And I got kind of lucky because the two dual lands I have here also have a blue option within both of them, which makes it look more like I actually planned things and I know what I'm doing. So here I'm looking at the one room we have. There's also the Scuttling Skull Crab. And I figured at this point, like, why not? Why not, you know? Like, if I'm playing a bunch of enchantments in a bunch of rooms, if the opponent is, like, also drawing cards or just taking a really long time and not applying pressure, maybe I can get them out of the game before they have a chance to apply enough pressure. Also, in like an aggro deck, if you draw the Skull Crab early, it can block some of the little guys and just stall. So my plan with this deck was get enough rooms to fulfill the hopeful win con and then just stall. So I'm not doing a lot of like super aggressive tactics. It's all play rooms and stall. So my rare was the dissection tools, and I decided to go for it simply because the dissection tools are colorless. So regardless of what my land situation is going to look like, I can play it as long as I just have 5 mana available to me. And then there is lifelink attached to whatever creature this is equipped to, which to me meant stall. You get more time. Plus, like, if you have a death touch blocker, a lot of people can be like hesitant to attack into you and this and that. So again, we're not necessarily using it to be overly aggressive here, even though lifelink is a really good way to just get out there and like force damage and not really care if they smack you back necessarily. We're doing it on more of like the stall end because the name of the game is drag this thing out so I can actually get 8 unlocked rooms and have one of them be the central staircase. I'm looking at this room here, the Defiled Crypt, because like it is a new room that I don't have yet and it's cheap, but I'm kind of wondering like how useful is it? Because you want a creature in your graveyard so you can pull it back out. And I don't have a lot of creatures, so I'm not 100% sure how useful this is going to be. But, you know, we take it anyway, and we'll see if we actually want to keep it in, like, the whittled down, finalized version of the deck. Leyline of the Void is a good card in some instances. I have a historic deck that performs pretty well that uses it because I care about like devotion to black. But here in draft, generally Leyline of the Void doesn't help as much as you would hope it would. And that's simply because like you don't know what other people in draft are doing. And in this format, there is a lot of graveyards, so like I can see why you would pick it. But if you noticed, it came up in such a late pick because um, in draft you're not sure if it's gonna be a dead card or like act as a silver bullet against other people. So we're grabbing some more rooms. I do really like Glassworks. I think that it performs well. Like I've never really regretted putting Glassworks in a deck that's running red in this draft format. The five colored nonsense creature came back around, but I'm choosing to ignore her. And the reason is because she does a lot of shenanigans with like relocking and then unlocking doors. And even though we're doing five colors and we have a lot of rooms, I figured the value I could get from like relocking and unlocking a door wouldn't stack up the same to just trying to get a bunch of doors unlocked. Like it seemed more like spinning wheels, a little bit dirtily, better for like a long-term value-based engine. For me, it feels more like this is like the draft is a wrong format for that to really shine. You would want to do that in I don't know, either a deck you can plan really well or more of like a more commander situation is what I keep thinking of because I come from the commander arena. Oh, which is why, since this is my first video and I get to introduce myself while I'm whittling down my deck here, I come from a commander background, so my calculus when I'm looking at standard decks is a little bit skewed because I always want to do like the big, slow, awesome, splashy, super expensive spells and like build engine values that are built around like drawing cards. So if I get rid of some things that like seasoned, very well off or super experienced draft players do or like pro players, don't get too mad at me. If it irks you enough to the point where you can't enjoy the video, like just click off. Like you don't have to subject yourself to me making silly mistakes or being inexperienced. So that's where we're at. And I decided to cut like a few useless creatures, some rooms that had like zero utility except for unlocking them for the sake of the stairs. So here's my first stall piece in my first game with this deck. And I think this is like a pretty okay hand, you know, because we have multiple lands in multiple colors, which conveniently are the colors of the cards in my hand. We actually got the Promising Stairs on this draw, but before that, we had three different room cards available to us, and the Key Bearer, and the Defender stall piece creature. And I think the funniest part about this first match is it's almost like a mirror match. I don't want to say that because it looks like they're chilling with two colors. But they also just like slap down the Promising Stairs elevator card. Uh so we are in the move of who's gonna get enough rooms first. And it's kind of sad that I had to manifest the other one, but you know, it is what it is. Come on, buddy. What you think about play a room? We all know you want to play a room. You can do it. You can be anything you want to be. Granted, the timer doesn't time you out. Speaking of, I didn't plan that, but that was pretty cool. Alright, they exiled the creature, but worse things have happened. Not too sad. I'm getting a little bit bored though. My mouse is fidgeting because I'm just clicking the button. And we got another room. So create a token of target creature, or that's a copy of target creature, I should say, for clarity. So now I'm thinking it would be nice if we had the key bearer out and then we put down that room. I'm not really interested in copying the defender, which doesn't have more utility aside from when you play a room, it can actually hit for 3. So we'll see what they do about this one since they already used one Scorching Dragon Fire. And it really seems like they're sticking with Is It? So they could have more damage-based removal. Or they could have like an Unable to Scream of their own. Or they could just bounce it, make a tempo play, slow me down. They played the Most Valuable Slayer, which I do like. I think that card is really nice when you're attacking a lot. I don't know how much attacking they're doing. And now they have 2 cards in hand. That's one thing I noticed about some of these tempo plays in draft, because there's a time and a place for everything. But the problem with like the meat locker and these cards that bounce things is if you're doing a stall tactic, you find yourself getting behind in cards because you spend a card for the opponent to like temporarily pick one of theirs up or have their creature tapped down. But then when the opponent like replays that creature or their creature has the stun counters removed and is not tapped down anymore, you spent a card and they didn't have to. So like tempo plays are great if you're in a deck where you only need a couple more turns of applying pressure to have that pivotal point in the game where now you're in the commanding position and it doesn't matter, they have a card up on you. And their deck being the same as mine, where we're stalling to try to find rooms, that didn't end up being helpful here. But we're gonna copy our Ghostly Keybearer because they didn't remove it. And they're tapped out, so they wouldn't like bounce it in response and make us waste a room. And then we're gonna go unlock a room. I went with the red rooms, like the ticket booth's other half, simply because simply because unlocking the other side of the mirror room didn't seem as helpful at the moment. And the reason for that being, okay, I decided not to block. The simple reason for that being is that like the other side of the room having things trigger twice can be useful, but I would want like more things on the board for that to snowpile. And now we know they have a piece of removal. If I was them, I would take out one of the flyers, one of the key bearers. Not just because they're getting us a lot of like mana advantage here, like unlocking these rooms that are expensive for free. Oh, they quit, never mind. But also because they can't block that. Even though they have a wide board. We're on to game 2 though. Good game to the first game. Okay, I'm looking at my hand. I have 3 of my colors. I have 2 different rooms. I have the Ghostly Keybearer. So I'm just gonna keep it. I also technically have a piece of removal with Unable to Scream. Like, I mean, it's draft, right? So this is like a pretty, in my opinion, this is like a pretty good hand for draft. I'm missing a 2-drop, but I have 3 lands and a somewhat functional curve out in my hand. And I don't really mind not dropping an island first here because likely I'm not gonna wanna Unable to Scream like a 1-drop. So I didn't mind too much. And the stick twister, their little tutu, he's really problematic once they hit delirium. But since it's the beginning of the game and the graveyard's empty, I'm not super worried about it. Right now it's just like a life linking 2/2. So I'm gonna manifest something. We actually got creature to manifest, that's nice. And we're gonna see what happens here. If we can get him to like spend a card removing it, or if next turn I get to flip it over and unlock the other room. Okay, they're gonna tap it down, that's fine. I will say in draft, I've always seen lifelink become really important. I've yet to see lifelink be irrelevant. And I know that sounds kind of silly to say, but sometimes when people say, "Oh, look, it's just a 2/2 with lifelink, it's whatever." Sometimes that 2 life ends up winning the game because you can leverage it in a way where if you say like race me, um when you have lifelink on your side, usually it gives you an edge when you're racing someone, like what they're doing here, because like they're still doing tempo plays, right? They're spending a card to keep my card from doing something for a couple turns. But since they're also being aggressive, they're pecking at me every turn. It feels a lot different than when in the last game they were tapping down my stuff, but they weren't like doing anything proactive in the meantime. And I think that's the big difference between like tempo, when you want to do a tempo play, and when you want to do a control play. Because if you're doing like a control play, you're like actually permanently removing the item, you're exiling it, you're destroying it. um that gives you more time where you're answering a card for a card, like what they just did there. But when you're just tempo playing, if you're not being actively proactive like this opponent is, it just ends up getting you down in cards unless you're drawing like a god. So we have a lot of lands now. They've tapped down my creatures. I'm kind of thinking about a couple things. I'm like, do I want to re-equip the dissection tools? And I guess the answer is yes. I could have also like flipped the key bearer, and I can still do that here. So my question was between doing that or do I play more creatures and remove one of theirs? Because if you notice, they're getting close to delirium. And something that's like really tricky about delirium with the fear of missing out is they untap a creature and they get to hit you again. And that can be way more damage than you think it's going to be out of nowhere. And I ultimately decide to take out the stick twister because that one asks you if it has delirium. That one will prompt you at the end of their turn to say, okay, lose some life or like get rid of one of your permanents. And that seemed more problematic than them hitting me for potentially 4 if they get to delirium, and then they can untap their fear of missing out and hit me again. Especially with the life link that I have. Like I can swing with my flyer, gain some life, and then if they hit me back, I'm not super worried because the status quo right now at least says I get to hit them and gain 5 life, and then they do 4 damage to me. So I'm still like slowly ticking up and winning this race. And right now I have 4 rooms unlocked, which is pretty good, so I'm feeling okay. I have another ghostly keybearer in case they get rid of mine. The only issue is if they get rid of mine, I wouldn't have enough creatures to sack one to like re-equip the dissection tools. And we got super lucky. We drew the promising stairs here. I'm playing out the other room first, one to widen my board, but also I don't want to throw out my win condition earlier than I have to. And I think that's just a habit of mine, um of like not showing cards sooner than I necessarily need to, because if I threw out like the promising stairs way before I needed to, like if I threw this out earlier, there's a longer amount of time where the opponent could find a way to do something about it. Like they could uh destroy an enchantment, they could bounce something. But at the end of the day, because I have all the mana and they're not playing green, like the risk is low and I might as well throw it out there. We say oops here because I picked the wrong side, so like my win con isn't up. But I have 25 life. They have 13. So like past me didn't do a great job here, but that's life, right? And this isn't my full-time job. I'm just doing this for fun, and I hope that you're having fun hanging out with me and listening to me blather on. But the reality is I'm usually playing these games like after I have a long day of hard work, like most people. So I'm a little tired and I make some ridiculous mistakes. But they're saying good game here because they don't necessarily have a way to get rid of all 23 of my life before my upkeep. And the Promising Stairs is going to trigger on my upkeep because of all the rooms I have. I played the Meat Locker to tap down their creatures just to have a little bit of an insurance policy to make sure they can't pull something wild out of their hat. I don't even think they would have a way to do it, but I guess just good practice is like be super sure. All right, good game to that opponent. And we're on to the third game. We are wildly 2-0, and I have to tell you, when I built this deck, I was expecting to just lose all three games. I'm not I'm not joking. Because for me, draft is still like a little bit foreign. I do okay. You know, the last qualifier weekend that there was, I played and I actually got 5 wins in the second day, and those were all like traditional drafts, so best out of 3 matches. And that's kind of what prompted me to start making videos because I thought like, oh, not so. I have a long way to go. As you've seen this video, I make some like ridiculous plays and just some silly mistakes, but I guess I'm knowledgeable or experienced enough, even as like a commander player, not somebody who like grew up with draft and standard as like their bread and butter here. I have enough experience with Magic to where like maybe I can be entertaining when I play it, and you know maybe someone can have fun watching or potentially like learn something. Like you could learn from my mistakes for sure, or maybe you're like brand new and so hearing me talk about just stuff in general could be useful. I've also seen that like not a lot of people draft, man. Like, and I when I was starting to learn draft, it was like a little intimidating and a little scary because I didn't really know like who to get help from. And like I read some stuff online. But a lot of people that write articles or blogs or anything about this matter, it can be really technical and complicated because usually they're writing it for an audience that already kind of understands what they're doing. So they go in the technicalities of like, oh, well, in this set, like this card's better than that one, and like if you draft these couple cards or this color combination, like the average winning stats go up by like 4% or something. And it's like sometimes people just want to see how the heck it works and how to know what cards you pick. And I'm gonna do a shout out right now to Kenji. I think his channel is Newmont the Nummy. That's his channel name. And he's actually like the one person I watched to understand what drafts look like when you do them online, because I just like the amount of people that just aren't comfortable drafting and recording it and uploading it is so large. Like there's all of these people out there that they just drafting isn't their thing, or they like to do something where they can control the environment a little bit better, so they enjoy doing their standards. And I've also seen a lot of people who just do like one-on-one, or not one-on-one, excuse me, like one match standards. So they don't do traditional, they just do the best of ones. And I don't know, like I actually enjoy doing the traditional more because with your sideboard you can really like have a deck that just has answers to everything, and maybe that means I'm more of like a paranoid player, or I enjoy control better, where it's like if I feel like I can't answer another deck, it just like gives me anxiety and it makes me uncomfortable, which is interesting that I like doing either traditional or draft where you don't even know what cards you're going to play with. I kind of like the gambling aspect of the grab bag of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing today, but let's figure it out and make it work. I think that that's just an exciting way to like shake stuff up. And I think it keeps the I don't want to say the meta fresh, but in standard, sometimes you hit a point where all the games start to feel the same if you've been playing too long. Like it's just oh, here's that mono red deck. Oh, here's the mono red deck again. Oh, here's the red and green deck. Oh boy. And like I remember like a couple years ago when the black and blue like rogue mill deck was popular, like that's all you saw for like 10 games in a row. And so draft is nice because even though there are things people lean to and there's stuff that they'll always constantly try to force a draft on, like they'll just pick those cards regardless of what's in their packs or if they can build a good deck around it. And they do that because like whatever style they're going for has a higher win rate. So for example, like in Duskmorn here, blue and white had a really high win rate. So a lot of people would try to just like force that by picking all the blue and white cards, and then maybe the other people you're drafting with won't, so that you can get like good ones or you'll get lucky. It's even if they do that, like there's still you're not gonna fight like the same like 10 decks in a row in draft. Like I haven't seen it happen. It would be like the wildest, freakiest thing. Okay, that's my tangent for why I think draft is fun and why I'm doing this channel, I guess. Nice to meet you officially. I'm Amy. Hi. And then the last game, I realized I talked over the whole thing, but you know, I said good game, and we left. And part of that was because, like, I'm sure you could catch it. I made a couple silly mistakes. Hindsight's always 2020. It's easy as the viewer to say, like, you should have done this instead. Um, and in a lot of cases, like, yeah, I should have, because I'm playing at like, you know, 11 at night, 1 in the morning when I'm tired. But I'm subjecting myself to the internet, so it's not like I'm naive enough to think that there aren't going to be people who are like, "Wow, you're really not good at this. Like, why are you even here?" But for those of you who are understanding and patient about this, they're just hanging out for a good time. Like, I know seeing those little mistakes are going to irk you because it's like you could have just not done that. You could have done B instead of A and like won probably. But it is what it is. So they're playing a Selesnya deck. They got their green white wide board on, and they actually like have two pretty clutch removal spells to keep my board tiny. And the shrewd storytellers, when they start going off, like that gets scary. Like a 5/5 with vigilance is wild. And if they put both counters on it, it'll be a 7/7 next turn. The problem is like sometimes it's really hard to get the shrewd storytellers going. And what I mean by that is like they have to be tapped for they have to be tapped at the beginning of your second main phase for them to see everything and put counters on stuff. And right now I'm thinking about what do I want to block? I could just not block and go to 1. Um the thing is at this point I'm kind of thinking there's not really a realistic way for me to win this anyway. I'm not even sure what I could draw to like have any of this work out for me. And even if I double blocked, the one of the 5/5s, I would have no board whatsoever. So right now I was just thinking, okay, let's block a little bit, let's get one more draw. Maybe I can squeak out some kind of a win. I don't really see that happening, because even if I get two creatures and I block their two big creatures, which one has trample, so kind of useless, um, because I can't negate all that damage, they're still gonna have the two 3/3s that can go unblocked, and that's lethal damage. But, you know, I'm humoring them, so I looked at all my outs, and I let them swing in for the win. Because sometimes it's nice to actually, like, get the final hits in. A lot of people kind of quit before then, and, like, I think I did that the game before this one. But if someone's playing efficiently, and if they have lethal on board, they're not sitting there, like, thinking about their cards really hard and then, like, buffing their creatures to oblivion just because they think it's cool and they're taking a lot of time. Like, if you're actually being considerate, like if I'm tapped out and you have lethal and you just swing, I'll let you hit me because, you know, that's actually nice. But that courtesy only extends to people who aren't being, like, kind of smarmy about it. And they weren't. They were great. So good game on them. And we are on to the next one. So now I have two losses. So if I lose again, we're out. And as I said before, I didn't expect this deck to really perform well at all. So at this point, I'm pretty happy, but I also want to win more because it's fun and you get more rewards that way. And right now I'm thinking about, or I was thinking about, do I want to block and, like, either trade with creatures or force them to get a combat trick out of their hand? Or not. And I ultimately decided no, because the Peeper taps for a blue mana that you can use on enchantments. And I can also, like, wait and maybe chump block something bigger later, since my whole plan is stall tactics. Now, with the Derelict Attic, I really only like the side that draws you the cards. So the other side, the Widow's Walk, it just says if you attack with a creature by itself, it gets, like, Death Touch and +1/+0, I think. And for this deck, that's not necessarily useful, but if need be, we can unlock that room just to achieve the win con. If we're going that way, though, I'm not going to spend mana unlocking that room now. I'll do that later to, like, seal a win. Right now, I'm more interested in protecting against this giant white and green board that they have going on. Also, the Insidious Fungus on their side, the 1/2 creature, is a little bit of a problem because it can destroy an enchantment if they, like, pay a mana and sack it, which means I probably don't want to play out the Promising Stairs right now because they can quite literally take away take away our win con. So I'm kind of hoping they'll actually sack it to end some other room. Like, I'm gonna try to bait them so that they'll use it and we can get something else later. Like, we can draw another room so we can still fulfill, like, the 8-room achievement. So right now I'm gonna unlock the Drowned Diner, and this does a couple things. It lets me draw cards, but also the Insidious Fungus isn't as motivated to kill those rooms because they don't have lasting, like, static enchantment effects. It's just when you unlock this, do a thing. So that means we probably have 2 rooms on the board now that are stable. And hopefully the fungus, if I didn't enchant it, would have, like, blown up maybe, like, the Widow's Walk instead. But since we took away its abilities, with the unable to scream, unless they have a way to remove that enchantment from it, or a different way to remove enchantments altogether, we're now at a position where if I played out my win con, it would likely stick around. The issue I'm having right now is the other rooms in my hand, other than the win con, which we need to get 8 unlocked rooms, are red. So I can take the central elevator and go look for a room that we could actually play with the colors of lands we have. And that's what I'm thinking about right here. So they have a wide board. I'm only at 11. The thing is, though, I'm getting close. Okay, I go for the gym, which will let me get the color of land that I need. There we go. I have an Unable to Scream. Could use it to, like, nullify some damage. But whoever I enable to scream, they'll pass the bat around and they'll tap down a blocker in some way. The thing is, I'm getting so close that essentially we're racing each other. Like, it's either they find a way to push enough damage through, or I just unlock enough rooms on my next turn. And I kind of figured with the blockers that I have available to me, if I can survive this combat and their next one, I should be good. So even without blockers, unless they played more creatures or equipment, I would be fine at 11 if they do 5 2 turns in a row. But here I'm setting them back even further in their timeline because I blocked one of their creatures and we traded. Surveil the land away because now I have my colors. So now I'm just thinking, how do I make sure they don't push through for damage and kill me? Because they do have a lot of damage on board with the Thresher that they played. So I'm manifesting Dread. That gives me another blocker. One thing about the Thresher is, like, he's big, but he doesn't have trample. So as long as I stuff anything in front of him, it will be helpful. And then I attacked with the Key Bearer because it allowed me to manifest something, and this creature is quite a bit bigger. And then we're getting rid of the most power they have on the board, and they quit. Good game. Next game. Here we actually got the skull crab, which is cool. I know we saw it in another game, but we haven't had it, like, opening hand before. And I think the skull crab really shines if you can play it right off the bat and get, like, a lot of activations off of it. Because even though we don't have a deck built around mill, when you have little tiny baby decks of only 40 cards, it can do a lot of work, especially if the other person is surveilling or milling or drawing cards, which is prevalent in this format. Also, when people manifest, that can, like, rip through a deck really quickly as well. So it's not like a win con I expect to win, but it's another avenue to distract the opponent from what we're doing and, like, apply pressure. I think this hand's interesting because I just milled away some peepers and I drew another one. Nice. But I think this hand's interesting because we have both of our promising stairs and the central elevator, but we only had, like, the aquarium room off of it. And playing both promising stairs really doesn't help us because the 8 rooms only count if they're unlocked and they have different names. But I am really, really happy with just how many wins I've stacked up so far with this deck. Like this is wild. The unstoppable slasher is really scary though. It's a it's a really good card, especially in this situation where I don't have any removal. I'm thinking about if I want to tap him down though, just to get them to relax. Because it's like if I play the key bearer, I'll most likely chump block with the skull crab, and they get to remove one of my creatures, so I'll be trading one creature for another. And then if they have removal, which is likely since they're Esper colors, that causes a problem. Because they can just hit me and then I'm down to like 9 life. Unfortunately, they countered the meat locker, so I'm gonna chump anyway. Chump block. Goodbye, crab. You did what you were supposed to. You stalled. Alright, we're thinking. Because if I play the key bearer now, it's either gonna chump block to just out of commission the slasher for a bit. They also left mana up and they just countered me. But you can't counter the rooms being unlocked conveniently. And right now I'm just kind of sad because I'm like, I wanted those dissection tools face up. And that could have really helped, you know, like a creature with death touch and lifelink. I'm not super worried about the 1/1. It's just the slasher that's a problem. And them drawing cards here is actually pretty good, I would say, for them. Because likely what their strategy right now is just mercilessly attack with the slasher and keep it from dying, so they can do it every single turn. And so if they draw cards, yeah, they're going for like removing or out of commissioning all of my creatures, so they can just keep like hitting me, which is scary and might be a sad end to the stair deck here. So here I'm just playing to my outs. Like, I would prefer that the key bearers stuck around and then tacked, but I was gonna try to put up a blocker that could at least, like, do lethal damage to the unstoppable slasher. It's not going there. So, good game to them. This was the deck list in case you want to see it one more time. And I'm super thrilled that this deck actually performed and was like a competitor, you know. It did it didn't flop and it didn't have games where it was just like, oh, you know, it just ended. It was like even on the games where we lost, it felt like it was able to put up some amount of a fight and whoever won at least earned that win. So I'm really happy with that. Even though it wasn't perfect, I'm super happy with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I'll see you next time as a new up and coming draft video. I will say really quickly, besides thank you for watching, those of you who made it to the end, I do have a Patreon where every time I upload a video to YouTube, I upload a sister video to Patreon. So if you want to see double the videos from me, you can go check them out on there. And as this channel gets going, I'll release videos faster But for now, it is what it is, and we'll get there. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in a brand new video.